So today we are going to be having a real conversation about a topic that I am absolutely so excited for. And I have a feeling it's going to go south very quickly, but we will see.
South with me.
But I think, the main question and theme that I want to probe for this is, why do I keep choosing the wrong partner? And why do I chase insanity over stability? Why does calm feel weird, right? So why do I feel most alive in relationships that are also the most exhausting? We're going to be talking today about trauma, emotional responses in relationships, how we pick our partners, Ian, and why so many of us, without even realizing it, are addicted to this emotional chaos, which I definitely can attest to for sure. But I think one thing that I wanted to mention before we start this episode, because I was thinking about it on my way here, you don't need to have like textbook traumatic upbringing to find yourself caught in an unhealthy relationship cycle. So like, I don't want to say that it's always trauma. Like it can just be a pattern that develops. And I think that not all relational wounds are the result of abuse or obvious trauma in terms of like a caregiver. Like sometimes it could be just like subtle, quiet moments when you're growing up and developing, from like feeling unseen, from constantly having to be responsible for someone else, maybe from friendships where we were ignored, right? Or just like our community, or emotionally extending ourselves. So I definitely wanted to preface that beforehand. And you could have very well had supportive parents growing up, but still, grew up in an environment that maybe shaped your understanding of love as something that you have to earn, that you have to fix, or that you have to fight for. And that was something that I was thinking about in the car, because sometimes I think that people will directly correlate their relational wounds and the way that they choose their partner because of some catastrophic event that may have occurred, like with their parents. But it's not all that. You maybe were told that you were too chill of a girl growing up, right? Or you were never too emotional, or you were never too needy. There's just so many different things that could have developed with this. And that's kind of what I wanted to like preface before we really get deep into it. Because I feel like some people in our last trauma video commented like, I had a great childhood, or I had parents that were really good. And it didn't stem from that. And I know that we didn't get a chance to ever clarify that.
No, and that's
for
a good
people.
Point. I would like to say that I feel that your entire intro was some sort of subtle nipple nudge at me. I felt it.
It might have been.
But I'm so interested to see where this conversation goes. No, but I agree with you. I think a lot of people will choose familiarity, and they find comfort in chaos.
Right.
And that's really what some of the issues are. And they wind up mistaking control for safety. And when you go through something traumatic, your body and your mind winds up either developing this trauma response in two different ways. You have a hyper independence or a toxic codependency. And again, like you said, you could have this beautiful upbringing. You could have two absolutely phenomenal parents that were always great caregivers, always present. They were always there for you. They loved you unconditionally, and they gave you everything. But even that in and of itself could cause or elicit some level of a traumatic response. Not all the time. Getting too much, being given too much, not going through enough in your life could have an adverse or a contradictory effect. But I do believe that the nuances in life and the things that we go through, whether they're from external sources outside of our family, even as we're getting older, that really impacts us. And it makes us search for what we subconsciously will always find to be familiar. And if our system, if our somatic nervous system is used to being in chaos, we are going to subconsciously chase chaos because that's what's comfortable for us. The ability to experience peace is something that's foreign. And that level of the unknown is what elicits anxiety. So we're always going to chase what we find to be normal.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that, I think, thinking about someone who grew up in an environment that, was stable, right? Oftentimes I'll see that environmental component could very well be like their friends, right? Or this conditioned response to not authentically be able to be themselves. So what will happen is they learn to suppress, or they'll learn that they have to prove themselves or to not tolerate too much. So that necessarily doesn't need to be trauma, but it's imprinting, right? And imprinting does lead to conditioning and wiring in your brain. And of course, on the flip side though, like, yes, there is, a rooted trauma within some relational wounds, whether that be emotional neglect, whether that be abandonment, abuse, inconsistent caregivers, right? Growing up in environments where love was unpredictable, where you feel like you have to earn it, yep. Where you feel like you need to fix something, and it becomes something that's conditional. So this all creates kind of what you were talking about, survival strategies, and those don't just go away, right? If we're so comfortable with this conditioned love, all we're going to know how to do is replicate it in every single relationship and Correct. Friendship that we ever experience. So like whether it is trauma or just like a pattern and response, your brain and your body adapts to it. And like you said, like your body is comfortable in whatever it knows. And if the comfort is chaos, then that's what's going to feel safe to you. That's what's going to feel like home. And I think that a lot of people misconstrue that feeling of passion for safety and security. But passion and feeling right, which we'll talk about, does not equate to healthy. And, that's where someone becomes addicted to those highs and those lows. And I think that becomes one of the most confusing dynamics in adult relationships, is that like pull towards intensity, right? And that like roller coaster feeling.
I think one thing that you said which needs to be expanded on is the fact that we're confusing a relationship of what's supposed to be, and not peaceful by any means. Relationships are surrender. You're surrendering and you are being able to flow with the natural state of how things are supposed to go. When somebody has this etching and this ingrained response into their psyche and into their mannerisms, into their behavior, into their emotional responses, they're in constant survival mode.
Yes.
Everything you're doing is in the state of survival. It's the fear. You're in the state of fear. You're in the state of not wanting to be unchosen again, not wanting to be left alone, not wanting to not be picked, not wanting to be left out, not wanting to be unseen. So you're in this constant mode of trying to survive that, and you are looking at being codependent and lustful or controlling as a form of safety, but in reality, it's completely contradictory to what being in a relationship is supposed to be.
100%, but I also think that that's that like roller coaster feeling, that like dopamine hit, right? Where they finally text you back and you're like, oh my gosh, or the passion of like making up and breaking up, right? That is extremely intense. The butterflies, like all of this can be a signal of anxiety, right? And for a lot of us, like it may feel like love, those feelings, but it's not necessarily love at all. It's often, like you just said, your nervous system in that fight or flight. And our bodies are biologically built to adapt to what we know, right? So we don't like uncertainty. Our body doesn't like the unknown. So when you find yourself in a place that may replicate a certain pattern, well, that's just your body saying to you, I know this, I feel safe, I understand this pattern, so I'm going to keep up with it. However, just because your body recognizes something, recognizes a pattern, recognizes, a certain behavior, enjoys that push-pull dynamic, does not equate to a healthy, secure, and stable relationship. And I think we should kind of like specify what that looks like and how it is, because I know you and I have both been in those, but it's really important to differentiate between, am I just comfortable and is this all I know, or is this truly healthy?
Well, it's also good to have people understand that there's also going to be natural chaos that, let me not use the word chaos, conflict that takes place in relationships. We're not saying that conflict should not be at the forefront of relationships.
Right.
If anything, conflict is important and it's necessary in every relationship because the relationship
100%.
has to be tested. You have to grow. You're never going to grow from complacency and easiness of something if you're with somebody. If you're never arguing with them or there's no disagreement, that's not healthy in a relationship. So there's a difference between toxic, codependent, high and lows, and between natural conflict that is necessary for the development of two people to progress together.
Right. And what would you say an example be, if you have one, of something that may be a toxic form of a relational conflict versus a healthy and natural?
I think toxic form of relational conflict would definitely be the highs and lows of love bombing, for example. Or again, you have somebody who you get these constant dopaminergic hits of anger, depression. There's this push-pull that's constantly taking place. You're speaking, you're connected in 1 second, and then you're not speaking the next day, and then you're going 2 days, 3 days, 4 days without speaking. Then you're waiting. You're in this constant state of hypervigilance, anxiety. You're ruminating. You're vacillating between anxiety and depression. And then when you finally get that text, like you said, dopamine hit. Your entire meaning, your entire value, your entire worth is solely dependent on the communicative factors of the other person. That's toxic.
Also, to add, so toxicity within a relationship is, definitely hyperdependence on a person. So if you feel like every single move that a person's making, anything they're saying or doing, you're at their beck and call, I mean, that is a red flag in itself, that there's way too much energy being elicited into this person, right? And I think not having your own space to be able to navigate your world, to have your friends, to enjoy your hobbies, to be able to be your own independent person, that can become very sticky very quickly. I always say too, people, I'm laughing right now because this is like a constant situation that I deal with. Okay. Talking stages. I need to just go here for 2 seconds because this is something that needs to be discussed. There is a period of time when any person, two people, are going to be in a talking stage. When you are casually talking with someone, you are getting to know them. This is not ownership.
That doesn't exist anymore.
This is not, we're in a committed relationship. This is two people enjoying the presence of one another and trying to see if they're compatible for a possible commitment. And I tend to see most of the time people latch on way too quickly, start to develop this sense of like ownership, and then all of a sudden start to have these jealous, reactions. They start to elicit these very hostile, passive aggressive responses. They will start to get very frustrated, angry with the person they're speaking with because they want to go out and hang out with their friends, or they don't want to spend as much time together. Meanwhile, you two are just supposed to be enjoying one another's company. It's not supposed to be a commitment at this point. And I sometimes feel that people immerse themselves too quickly into another person before you really know them. I'm sorry, but that is also toxic in itself, of just rushing so fast into something and claiming a person so quickly.
Codependency is romanticized pain. That's all that it is. Codependency is romanticized pain. And as much as you think that you might love that person in the first week or second week of knowing them, which you don't, you have no idea what love actually is. The only thing that you like about this person is that they're numbing with you dealing with the contortions of your own brokenness. And you are confusing obsession for some trauma responsive loyalty to this person. That is my 2 cents to that.
Well, again, I don't even think it necessarily has to be trauma for someone to be codependent. Sometimes I think that people are just so fixated on a certain thought that they have about how the relationship should go. I think that sometimes people get so immersed in the lust that they confuse it for real love. And I think that people don't take the time to not only understand themselves and what compatibility truly looks like, but not understand the other person. And if this really is something that could be moved forward into a direction of blossoming into a relationship. So I think people romanticize very quickly, and they try to create an ideal image of a person in their mind instead of looking at reality and what is really in front of them.
See, I don't even think that they're trying, and this is just where we might differ. I don't even think that most people are trying to create an image of that other person in their mind. I think that this is a deeper issue within the actual person themselves that is developing this level of lust. Because again, I agree that they're creating this image of, I want this person to be this way. This is my knight in shining armor. This is this queen that I've been looking for my whole life. But in reality, like I said before, I think that the deeper meaning and the hidden message behind all this is it comes down to having this one person numb their own brokenness.
But sometimes people don't even know that they're broken.
Right, but so, they don't know that they're broken, but they're broken.
Can I say something too?
Yes.
I'm sorry to intervene.
No, please.
You know, something that I notice a lot with my clients who do have, you know, marital problems or relationship issues is the number one thing where they come to me is they have absolutely no boundaries. The assertive communication is not there. And on top of it, there's low self-esteem and no self-love.
That's a problem.
But the reason why they come to me isn't because of the marital issues. The reason why they come to me is always about something else that ends up then falling into the basket of, you know, I do have marital issues. And then the reason why they have the marital issues or because, you know, certain situations are occurring is maybe the incompatibility. Maybe it's they don't have the assertive communication and they're not, you know, addressing their boundaries. Maybe it's, and the one I see also the most is a lot of people see the red flags before they date. So I'm just going to backtrack for a second. A couple of my clients as well who have these problems, they were the same exact person in terms of values, morals, ethics, and beliefs. And their partner had the same values, morals, ethics, and beliefs from when they first started dating. This wasn't a new person that just 10 years later, 5 years later came into their life. They knew what they were signing up for in terms of compatibility. And I find that a lot of people will kind of suppress what they truly do believe and the type of person they are just to kind of lock in that love and follow through with that lust without really sitting back and thinking, is this person really right for me? Does this really make sense? And then now fast forward, we're 5 years down the line, and now we're having all of these compatibility issues that were there from day one, but they were just completely ignored because maybe we were codependent or maybe their partner was codependent. Maybe one of out of the two rushed into the relationship. The other one felt pressured. Maybe they were both very excited about it and kind of forgot about all of the real life issues that come with, you know, having a relationship and being as one. But you know, a lot of what I see is from, yes, what you're saying is people have wounds, people have issues that they need to tend to. But the problem is most people don't recognize that they have these problems that they need to work on.
But that's my issue with all this.
Well, that's what makes it hard.
That's the issue is that everyone, nope, let me show discernment. So many people are blind to their own issues and their own burdens that they bring into these relationships, and then they mask them simply by the lust that is formed because of the codependency of the need and the desire for somebody to fill a void that they currently have in themselves, which is why so many marriages fail now. It's why so many engagements fail now. It's why so many people split up after they bring a child into this world thinking that a child is automatically going to fix a broken relationship. So I hear you. Everything you're saying is 100% correct. But the issue at hand is that they have issues. They have wounding. They have brokenness. And the inability to work on yourself prior to getting into a relationship, thinking that just getting with somebody, being with somebody, rushing into something with somebody is automatically going to fix the emptiness, the void, the holes, and all of the things wrong in your life is a fallacy. And you're doing more harm to yourself and to the other person than you are good. So yes, you're 1,000% correct. My main issue is that they're damaged and they're not doing anything about it.
Right. But I think that that's where it comes into play. A lot of people don't recognize and understand what damage really looks like for them. And I think that when, even going back, when emotional validation is very inconsistent in a person's life, it's going to make you crave it more, right? So you're going to hold on tighter. You're going to obsess. So when the absence of love isn't there, it becomes the hook for you. And then when that's the hook, you're going to completely run after it. And once it returns, it's like this euphoric feeling. And
I understand that. That's that push-pull love bomb. I understand that.
So a lot of the times we confuse emotional chaos for connection.
Correct.
And this is where it could get really sticky, because when our nervous system is wired to feel that chaos is normal, to feel that chaos is secure, to feel like chaos is safe, well, that's why they're replicating, this whole entire process with partner after partner. And, there's one thing that I actually have written down here because I did not want to forget, that I find that people say often is like, I don't know why, but like this just feels right. This just feels like it's the one, right? Yet, so the person who's saying this is the one where every other week they're calling their friend saying,
I found the one.
We're off again, we're on again, he did this, I don't know why. But then when they're good, it's like, I don't know why, but I'm just drawn to them. I've never felt this before. And red flags don't always feel like red flags, right? Sometimes, like I was just saying, it feels like home to people.
Right, but it might feel like home to these people, but ultimately, as much as chaos might feel like home, the physical manifestation that it etches into the body of discomfort, of sickness, of illness, that these individuals know that chaos is making them not feel good. It's making them not think well. That's the problem. And I have to say something off topic, on topic about what you said. If you're in a dynamic of this on again, off again, on again, off again, on again, off again, on again, off again relationship, that is the most toxic kind of relationship out there. And there's this analogy that I heard. If you go to the bathroom and you take a crap in your hand, are you going to try and insert it back into your anus? No, it's excrement. Once it's out of you for a reason. You don't try to insert anything back in you that's no longer part of you. And every time you're on and off again, that's what you're doing. You're putting poo back in the poop chute. It doesn't belong in there. Toxic.
Yes, but I think that what is important for us to understand is if red flags feel familiar, if chaos feels familiar, your body learned to brace unpredictability, to brace chaos. So for someone who meets a person who's pulling away and that's all they've ever
They're
known,
going to chase. They're going to chase because they want to be validated.
But it's not going to feel wrong
that.
to them. It's going to feel right because that's the only brace and conditioned pattern that they're aware of.
Can I just say something on that?
Yes.
Okay. I agree with you entirely.
Right.
I agree with every word and syllable and sound that's coming out of your mouth. The only point that I'm making, because again, you take all of my clients, for example, that have similar situations, but are in different situations where they're just chasing chaos and toxicity in other areas of their life. Mm-hmm. If you speak to any of them, they know that the feeling that they get of chasing does not feel good.
No,
it doesn't resonate well with them. It doesn't make them feel loved, wanted, or validated. They know in the moment of that chase, they're angry, they're visceral, they have anxiety, they're depressed, they're victimized, they're wallowing. They know subconsciously that what they're doing in that moment is completely contradictory towards what is supposed to be a healthy relationship. That's all I'm saying.
Oh no, I agree. In the moment, they're aware of it, but I'm saying the cycle continues because the second now that whatever the action is forgiven, and now they're back to lovey-dovey. Well, now that's the comfort. Now that's, oh, I got the love back.
100%.
Okay, now I feel great. And of course, we've all heard we mistake anxiety for. We mix up anxiety and butterflies, right? So we all have heard someone say like, oh, I've just had butterflies. And butterflies, not all the time, but can be anxiety. And
I never chase anyone that gives me butterflies.
This I think is like your nervous system screaming like it's unsafe, but our brain's whispering,
do it.
But this feels exciting.
Yeah.
But I know this. And that's exactly goes to your what you just said. Like our body knows shouldn't go through this pattern again. This just feels like, it's not what it is. But our brain is wired to be conditioned to all that we know. And that's why you see the follow through so many times with, people going back to toxic partners or this push-pull, because most of the time our thoughts in our brain is a lot stronger than the physical.
And you think that the thoughts in the brain are stronger than the physical? I think I think the thoughts in the brain will control what you do. But even going based off that point, and this is just like a coaching technique that I use, your feelings are a language of the body. They naturally will respond much quicker than the brain actually catches up. So if you have a feeling of discomfort in your chest, your stomach, heat, tension, you're tight somewhere, naturally what your brain is going to do is create a thought that coincides with that feeling, and it puts you back into that state of comfort. So your thoughts are a language of the mind. That synaptic connection is what causes this continual push-pull.
Right.
That's the issue.
Right. And when you grow up with this emotional inconsistency and never knowing when you're going to, get love, or if you're praised, or, if all of your validation comes from achievements or accolades, well, then you're going to learn that I have to show up, to get love. I have to earn it some way. So it's you kind of got to ask yourself the question, if you're always confusing, this sort of feeling for attraction, then it's like, Am I chasing a person, and drawn to them because they make me feel good? Or is it because I'm drawn to how hard I have to fight for their attention? Am I in love with the chase, or am I in love with this relationship? Because the second that you really can't decipher whether it's the chase for you or whether it's an actual feeling, that's when you know. And I think also when the feeling is so strong that you physically can actually feel ill over it, it's like, are you calm around them, or are you constantly bracing for something else to occur?
I also want to go into something that you said, and it's really more for women in a sense. When you're in this constant state of push-pull and you finally get pulled back in and you get that dopamine hit, what I notice is women tend to sacrifice their morals, their values, and their ethos infinitely more each time there's a push and a pull back in. They start to accept more. They accept more abuse. They accept more volatility. They accept more visceralness. They accept more, what's the word that I'm looking for? Deflection. They just start to accept more and more and more as time goes on, each time that they're pulled back in. If you start to notice that your own ethics, because the way the boundaries that you set, the morals that you have, are a direct reflection that you feel of yourself. If you start to notice your value, your worth, your love is dwindling because of your relationship, and you're accepting things that you've never accepted a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 4 month ago, a year ago, and now all of a sudden it's part of the norm, there's your red flag to dip.
Right. Also, I think you have to look at the pattern of the partners you're picking. Are you always choosing partners that are emotionally unavailable, right? Are you always choosing partners that you kind of have to fight for their attention? And the second that, if they're affectionate and then you give them an inch of what they're giving you, then all of a sudden they're cold and they pull away. These are all signs of, is it really the partner, or is it who you're choosing? Because oftentimes I find that a lot of people will generalize the dating population. And it's always like, these men suck, these women suck. I'm laughing. No, I'm not even gonna get into it. But a lot of the times, people,
no, you're getting into it.
No, people will generalize, a group or a certain category of men who work in a certain field, right? Or women or looks, whatever it may be. But at some point, you kind of have to ask yourself, am I victimizing myself because I'm choosing partners that clearly are not emotionally available, are not equipped to treat me the way that I'm looking for? And it comes to a point where you kind of have to look inwards and say, how is it that I'm always getting these partners and I'm the constant in this situation?
I have a question.
Yes.
What happens if people just suck now? What happens if the majority...
So again, we're generalizing.
Hold on. I'm just asking a very simple, clear question.
Yeah.
We live in a society now where morals have declined, values have declined, self-respect has declined. We live in a different generation where accessibility at our fingertips is 24/7. The way of dating has completely changed because when you're in a fight with somebody, you can easily just go on any app that you want and go source out a validity, go source out attention, go source out some external dopaminergic reward. What if people genuinely, most, not all, discernment for you, lack of generalization right there, most, not all, suck at the end of the day? What if that's just the environment that we currently live in? An environment that says, and a state of the world that says, I want this, and then in reality, when they start getting it, like you just said, they wind up pulling away from it, or they show you an entirely different side of themselves that really is everything that contradicts what they said they originally were. What if we just suck as a population now and dating has become grotesquely impossible?
Well, I think it's easy to say that we just suck as a population because if it's a struggle for a person and if it's really challenging to find someone, I definitely think that it's easy to generalize it. It's easy to say that. It's easy to be like, you want to know what? It's everyone else. It's not me. I'm the one who has everything together. I'm the stable one. I'm secure. I'm financially there, but I can't find someone who's right for me. And I did believe all of that for a very long time until I ended up in the predicament I'm in now, where I honestly don't think that that's true. And I don't believe that. And, you know, I think it's very easy to lose hope on love. And I think it's super, you know, common for everyone to just result in that because it's failure after failure after failure with trying to connect with a human being. But at the end of the day, you know, you have to be secure in yourself. You have to know the type of person that you are, have your boundaries, and just know that when the energy is there, it's going to be there. And when the right person is for you, they will be for you. However, we do have to sacrifice sometimes, right? And you will see sometimes boundaries are going to have to bend. And you will see that, you know, maybe you wanted all of these qualities and the person checks off maybe 5 out of the 10. But sometimes you have to sacrifice a little bit of, you know, what your ideal person looks like to really get someone that you can click with. And then as you two kind of develop together, you could become more compatible.
I agree with that.
You know what I mean?
Let me say this. I would like to just say something.
Please.
I love love. I am obsessed with love. You and I speak about that lawyer all the time. We share videos back and forth. He says
Jordan
something.
Peterson?
No, not Jordan Peterson.
No, that's a psychologist. I'm sorry. What's his name?
The attorney. It doesn't matter.
No,
but
what's the attorney?
I don't know.
James. It's James Saxton?
He says something.
Now I have to look it up.
Loving somebody is the most insane and bravest thing that you could possibly do in life because you're granting somebody permission to literally break your heart.
Yeah, you're entering them in vulnerability. Yep.
Learning, giving yourself over to anybody, allowing yourself to love anything, knowing that there is the inevitability that at some point, whether the relationship ends, you die or they die, there is going to be pain that ensues and follows through giving yourself to somebody.
Sexton.
So I think that love is the most beautiful thing in the entire world. So don't mistake what I was saying before about being a pessimist. I genuinely believe that there is somebody for everybody there, and of course you need to sacrifice certain things and work on certain things and move forward with certain things. Love to me is the most important thing that any person in this entire world can possibly ever experience. So I'm not against it, just so we're clear, even though I may have come off like I was. All I'm saying is
it's hard.
Is that in today's age of dating, it is infinitely more difficult than it has ever been.
Yeah.
Ever.
Ian, I think it's so upsetting when I sit back and think of, kind of my past beliefs because of, certain situations that I've been through. Because at one point, I didn't even believe in monogamy. And I was like, I think I may just have like a polyamorous relationship because every single man out here, is either I'm getting bored way too quickly and then I'm freaking out about, am I going to find the right one? Because clearly something's going on with me where no one's clicking for me. It's like, I could spend time with you and then it's like, over it. And I know that sounds very, laxed, but that's my truth. That's what it was. Then there was another side of it where like I felt insanely passionate for people who were emotionally unavailable. So that push-pull dynamic that I need to chase you. Like I need to feel like, you don't really want me a little bit just so I could kind of get you and I could kind of win that prize, right? I need to earn it. And that road brought me to a place where I did not believe in love at all. I thought that it didn't exist. I thought the exact thing that you just said of like, everyone sucks, everyone cheats, the environment.
No, I didn't say everyone.
No, well, I thought this. In the environment that I was in, I think I saw a lot of cheating around me. So I lost hope in just love, relationships. But, until I got into the relationship that I was in now. And
shout out to the GOAT.
So many, characteristics and qualities that I thought never existed, even within myself, started to develop. And I started to realize like, wow, that true love and, that lasting love is real. And that feeling is real of finding your one. I never thought it was. I thought Your One was just a fairy tale movie where I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And it took me to kind of just lay off the gas pedal, sit back. And at the time when I was very, very broken, I just put my hands up and I said, you want to know what? I'm done focusing on anyone because my whole entire life I needed to be with someone. My whole life it was like I needed to be immersed in some sort of relationship. I was never fully alone. And, in my 20s, I started to break away from that and understand the toxic pattern. And it got to a place where after my last really, really hard situation, I was like, I put this in the universe. I'm not focusing on it anymore. I'm going to focus on my career, my genuine friendships and connections I have with people I know care about me that are not intimate. And whatever comes my way. And I was not ready at all for a relationship at the time when my relationship now was presented to me. But I say all this to say that, it's very easy to lose hope and it's very easy to just fall into patterns, right? Because I had a choice, we both know, to continue a very bad pattern. I would have been set for life in other ways, but I had a choice and I had to choose like my dignity and to break that cycle because I knew in my body, I was like, my brain's telling me, maybe just do it. But my body was just disgusted with the thought of, continuing a relationship that I knew was never going to be what I wanted my future to look like. So I did the hardest thing you could ever do. And I walked away from something that I really thought was going to be something big.
You're bugging for that.
I was bugging. I was bugging. We will not get into details about it. But I was really, okay, I'm going to get into that situation for 2 seconds, not detail. And this is where I say that sometimes trauma, and this is more trauma than conditioned environmental responses outside of your home. A lot of the times people who are in very traumatic homes become conditioned to a certain sort of love. And they'll attach themselves, like we've been saying, to chaos, to, whatever feels comfortable for them. And when things feel normal, it's boring. Or when things are exhilarating because, you're not doing what you're supposed to, I'm thinking of infidelity right now, like that's exhilarating for people. So this person that I'm speaking on, I do think genuinely that he did care for me, and I know he did. And I think that was like the hardest part of the whole situation was he did have deep down such a pure heart, but he just couldn't see all of the wounds and trauma that he had experienced, and he did not want help for it. And you can't help anyone who doesn't want to see what everyone else does. You can't save someone from chaos when they love being there. And I was trying so hard to allow for that person to open their eyes to it, but they didn't want to even meet me halfway because they would rather pretend like that wasn't a reality than have to face what was truly a miserable life for them.
I mean, he was technically meeting you halfway. 1 foot somewhere, 1 foot another else.
So, when all is said and done, I think even through people's
I'm sorry.
No, even through, I'm trying to word this in a way that's appropriate. Even when people screw up and even when people are, disrespectful or, don't lead with love, I don't always think that that necessarily makes them a bad person. Sometimes I think that people just don't want to take off that mask. And I think it's really sad to see someone who could have been so pure end up, in such a messed up situation. If that
no, it does.
I can't really say what I want to say.
I know,
so it's hard for me to word it right now.
I want to say something because
you know it, so you could say it.
I know it.
Yeah.
But here's what I think you're trying to say. We can judge people from the actions that they show us.
Yes.
And so often we are judging them based off of simply the outer layer and the surface layer of what we're seeing and what we're going through with them without actually fully understanding the intentions behind it. Now, some people genuinely hurt us, but in reality, them hurting us, it's coming from a place of them hurting themselves.
Yes, this is exactly what I wanted to say.
And listen, you know me, was in relationships. I accepted cheating. I accepted physical abuse. I accepted some of the worst things in my life. And I can look back on every single one of those relationships and have nothing but grace, compassion, and love for that person because I've also been a person that has been terrible to others in my life. I have hurt others, sometimes intentionally and sometimes subconsciously without realizing that my intent was not actually correlating to my action.
Yep.
Everybody deserves forgiveness at the end of the day, regardless of how much they have hurt you. And I think what's happening in both of our situations is we both have dated a litany of people that have been terrible, but terrible for their own reasons and their own rhymes and their own understandings because of the things that they've went through and the complacency of the chaos and their own conditioning thought patterns and thought relationships that they've had. Yes. And they might have engaged in behaviors that they felt were actually okay, that they thought were genuinely acceptable. And we cannot try to change others. The only thing that we can do is change ourselves, and it is not coinciding. If we cannot acquiesce with what's going on, then we have to remove ourselves from the situation and do what's best for ourselves at the end of the day.
Also, I want to add to that, we cannot try to understand a person's actions. And for so long, I feel that and I'm sure we all have been in a boat where we just try so hard to understand, why did they do this? What were they thinking? What was the meaning behind this? Do you think they really meant it? But at the end of the day, the action is the action. And, back to what you were saying, where just because someone behaves in a way that maybe hurt you does not necessarily mean that, there was hurtful intent behind it. Sometimes people will move blindly, and this is not a justification or a validation for bad behavior, because I think everyone needs to be addressed when they hurt someone or do wrong. But what I'm trying to say is there's not always malintent behind hurt behavior. And sometimes, the saying is hurt people hurt people.
100%.
And we don't know the other layers. We don't know the life of other people. And I think the biggest part of my previous relationship was this person, what they endured and what they went through, whether that was self-inflicting or not, still experienced a very traumatic and tough upbringing that really molded and shaped who they were. And if you just met him when he was 20, 30, you would look at him and be like, oh, he's just an asshole. But when you don't understand the behind the scenes, the surface, behind the surface, and you don't deeply see, what kind of allowed for this sort of behavior to manifest, you would never understand it. And again, not a justification, but sometimes people are very quick to villainize others, and completely write them off for the rest of their life as if they're a bad person because of acts that they may have committed when they were hurt themselves.
We judge people based on action, not on their actual intention, because we cannot see the true heart and nature of that person. And we also are victim of doing the same things, and we're quick to cut people off. But meanwhile, we're the ones who fight to be understood when we are misunderstood, when we ourselves are judged by our actions and not the true intention hidden behind the action.
Yeah.
And that's just not fair. And that's that's where being a little bit more self-aware and a little bit more understanding really comes into play in interpersonal relationships, and also in your own relationship with yourself. It's understanding yourself, that you have your own wounds, that you have your own scarring, that you haven't conducted yourself perfect in your whole life, that you've made mistakes, you've judged, you've been judged, and you need to afford others the same grace and compassion that you're giving to yourself. And the fact is, we're out here judging people and holding them accountable for something that maybe they've done 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And we ourselves are trying to change at the exact same time. And we forget that. So you have to afford other people the same leniency that you're giving to yourself.
You need to give people space to grow, just like you've grown, through all of the different seasons in your life. And, I want to piggyback off of something you said earlier and just kind of go back a little bit, because I think this is really good context of this previous relationship that I was in. I just wanted to add with all of that is going into that relationship, which a lot of people make the same, I don't want to say it's a mistake, but they go into it knowing what the situation is. So sometimes you go into a situation where someone is vocalizing, listen, the relationship is just going to be kept at a casual level, or I'm not emotionally available, but, I'm definitely down to keep seeing you and hanging out and, whatever is the intention behind it. And if you go into that situation knowing and still accepting it, you can't be mad at the outcome that was told to you from the jump. And I think that...
Hold on. I said this in one of our past episodes, and you're like, no.
I didn't.
I said that when somebody says, I just want you as a smash piece, female or male, okay, and then you fight to try and change their mind, that you're the problem. That person trying to change the mind in and of itself is the sole issue in that dynamic. Because once the foundation has been laid, physically and fundamentally, once that foundation is set forth and you try to break that foundation and change it into something that it is not, you're the problem.
I don't remember saying that, but if I did, I've reflected like a lot just in terms of, this previous situation. And, I went into the relationship knowing that it most likely was not going to develop into a committed relationship. And unfortunately, you know, the emotional response and the heightened feelings that I had at that time, you know, really convinced me otherwise. And emotions are such a powerful thing because
they really are.
they're beautiful, but they could also be, you know, devastating because, you know, with all of the amazing feelings that I felt, you know, I also had this sense of dread because I would have great times, but then also think and have to check myself of like, but this isn't real, Maddie. This isn't what is going to be commitment at the end of the day. And, you know, I spent a lot of my over a year within a situation that I already knew what the end was going to be. And I fought so hard to change it, which was so wrong of me because I should have known from the jump that this person had vocalized that this was what the situation was and this is what it's not going to be. And in terms of lust, in terms of emotions and everything kind of intertwining together, I got very, you know, caught within it. And I really, truly believed that I could change the dynamic and the course of it. And this is something that's very common with people where you fight so hard to either try to change the person or try to change the relationship when the foundation is set and you already know what was stated from the beginning. And does that make you wrong for trying? I don't want to say wrong, but you know, sometimes our emotions can mislead us and we can't always think with emotion and we have to sometimes think with logic because that can bring you down a road of becoming very, very hurt very quickly. And that's what happened to me. You know, I led with my emotions and said it with my chest. And it led down a path where everyone else around me was like, Maddie, it's not going there. Are you sure? I don't think you should do this. This is what's happening. No. It's different. It feels different.
It's never different.
I've never felt this way before. It's just something I can't explain.
But you have felt that way before. That's the thing. You felt that high and that low before.
I felt the high and the low before. But my relationship I'm in now, I've never felt how I felt because it's peace.
Correct.
And this was something where, and to end this relationship saga of my previous situation, the end result for me was being so exhausted emotionally and having to look myself in the mirror and say, this is a pattern. I've done this time and time again. If it's not me in control saying it's boring, it's me chasing and being hurt. Like, I was like, I can't do this anymore because now my emotional response is just comfortable in chaos. Mm-hmm. And I had to sit there and really, really think to myself, what the F am I doing? And it was really, really hard. And this is not to say that these types of breakups are easy because they're not, but it formed, you know, I learned so much about myself through that. And I like what you said earlier of like, you don't have any negative, you know, feedback from any of your past relationships, because I would say the hardest relationships that I've been through are the ones that created who I am now and have shown me how I want to love and what I do love about love. Right. So
but even if they're the hardest, my hardest relationships were my absolute best relationships that I could have ever been in my life. Every time that I was manipulated, lied to, cheated on, faked cancer, like everything that I've been through with women, it has molded and shaped me into the person that I am now, that I'm not hopeless. Like, I am the most hopeful human being to find a woman. It's just difficult. I am beyond hopeful. I am so in love with the idea of loving somebody at the end of the day. Right. The hardest parts of your journey are always going to be the ones that mold you and shape you and recreate you and offer you the most substance into your life to basically have you, you know, perform into the individual that you can be for the best relationship possible moving forward. Yeah. So I don't think anyone should meet their past relationships with any sort of negative feedback, any sort of hostility, any sort of visceralness, any sort of animosity. If anything that you've been through in life that has been negative, where you've been abandoned, unseen, thrown to the side, discarded, cheated on, manipulated, or lied to, the lessons that you've been able to take away from all of that is what's made you who you are today. And that's the most grateful and beneficial thing that you could be.
Yeah, and you should say thank you to that person, right, for opening up that door for you and showing you that side of yourself and, you know, your strengths and what you really embody within a relationship and what you want to carry on to the next one. And oftentimes they think that the person who hurts the other is villainized. And I'm not, again, to say that they shouldn't have some sort of, you know, repercussion or conversation to be addressed to. But at the end of the day, many people villainize the person who hurt them for years on end instead of taking it as a learning, you know, tool and really trying to look inwards and say, like, what did I learn from this? And, you know, why did I stay for so long? What was it about this person that kept me there? You know, what was it that I needed to cling for their love, or I was accepting of all of the disrespect and everything that they put me through? And love is hard, right? Love is always going to be hard, whether it's healthy or unhealthy. I think that opening up yourself to a person and becoming vulnerable and then them hurting you and letting you down can be devastating, and it hurts. And sometimes we want to hurt the person who has hurt us. But I promise you, meeting hurt with hurt is never going to heal how you feel. And towards the end, I feel like I'm rhyming right now.
Gotta feel with it to deal with it, girl.
And at the end of the day, you know, like I had mentioned earlier, we have to stop thinking all of these people suck and turn it into, why do I keep choosing and staying with partners that clearly are not bringing me joy or security or stability that I'm looking for? Why is it that I'm so in love and infatuated with, you know, this toxic cycle? Why is it that I keep going back to my ex who's cheated on me 10 times, or who's abused me, or who neglects me, or who disrespects me, right? It's like all of these questions are not something for the other person because they've already shown you what it is. Now it's your choice to either stay and understand what the relationship dynamic is, or pull away and start to ask yourself some really hard questions that is going to take time to heal. And it's years worth of work. It's not something where, you know, you're going to wake up one day and be all better and choose a healthy partner. But healthy to a lot of people who like chaos is boring.
Go be alone.
Yeah.
Go be alone once you remove yourself from a situation that has broken you and hurt you. Because as much as you might feel like you're lost, it's when you're finding yourself the most when you are by yourself. It's when you learn the most about yourself. It's when you learn how to be self-sufficient. You can be self-admirable, self-recognition, self-love. You develop all these different tools, modalities, appreciative tendencies. You're not going to find that by being codependent on somebody else. You cannot bring brokenness into a relationship and expect to be put back together. The only person that can put you back together and make you complete is yourself at the end of the day. So being alone is one of the best positions that you could possibly be in. It's a place to find yourself. It's a place to love yourself.
Yeah, and, you know, to piggyback off of that, I find that a lot of people don't think that it's them who they should be asking the questions to. I think they feel like it's their partner who they should be seeking those answers to.
Negative.
You know what I mean? Like a lot of the times people will say, why are you just not showing up for me? Or what do I have to do more of for you to love me? Or why do you constantly go out and turn your phone off even when I tell you that I don't like that? Why do you have to, you know, call me names in front of others? Or why can't you just show me love? Or why, when you're in the same room with me, you're physically here, but you're not mentally or emotionally here, right? There's no affection there. Why are we asking someone else this question?
Why are you not learning to love yourself? Why are you not giving yourself all of that? And again, if you're in a relationship where, let's say, you're setting boundaries where someone's going out and turning their phone off and they know that that's a concern or an issue for you, then there's a problem. But the fact that you're begging somebody to love you or show up for you when the only person you are stuck with for the rest of your life is you,
Right.
that's the problem.
Right. And I think instead of trying to seek understanding for someone else's actions, you have to look at what the actions are and make that conscious decision to either stay or leave. And sometimes, honestly, there is no explanation for why someone is doing what they're doing. I think actions say a lot. And like we said earlier, do I think that every person who has hurt someone has intended to? Absolutely not. Do I think there's some that do? 100%. Right? There are narcissists out there. There are people who lack empathy. There are people who get enjoyment over control. But, you know, at the end of the day, whether you're with that narcissist or, you know, a person who just really is emotionally unavailable, it doesn't matter. An action is an action. And you need to be responsible for yourself. You need to pull away when you find that this seems to be a pattern, or I'm feeling anxious every single week, or we're making up to break up and then all of a sudden the cycle repeats again. And you know what, if you find yourself in this constant loop of like chasing infatuation, of only going after love that excites you, of only feeling stimulated when you need to chase after a person, these are all signals that you have to look inwards. And it's not to blame yourself, but you need to understand your patterns. And I can't emphasize that enough. Patterns are huge. And I feel like I always say patterns. But to understand, you know, your end and where you're at now, you have to understand, you know, the before and what came about and how this pattern has manifested itself and what it looks like. Like history repeats itself, right? So until you recognize, you can't break free from it.
So what do you offer somebody in a position right now struggling to find validation, worth, love, and acceptance from their partner, when in reality, they should be the ones giving all of that to themselves? What do you tell them?
I think you have to look within and think about, is this situation that I'm in that is draining me emotionally, physically, mentally, is this worth it? You know, it may feel like love. It may feel like this is your person, but at the end of the day, this is just a conditioned response. This is just an emotional pattern that you've learned. This is just chaos masking itself as comfort. This is just, you know, your body being familiar with instability. And if a person's not showing up for you, if a person is continuously disrespecting you, you feel like you have to walk on eggshells with them, they're not supporting you, then you have to make a decision to really stand up for yourself and be, you know, your own safe space. And I think that, you know, journaling is great, and kind of trying to understand and develop, you know, what is it that I'm feeling, you know, letting yourself express, really understanding, you know, why is it that I'm constantly in this situation? And all of these questions I've been asking, I feel like throughout the podcast, are really like good starting points for a person to start looking inwards. Even seeking therapy for kind of relational, you know, wounds or patterns that you find is also great. But, you know, I would also advocate for, maybe there are issues within the relationship, but do you have assertive communication? Do you have boundaries? Have you expressed how you feel? You know, these are all other avenues that could come, of course, before leaving a relationship. But if you're feeling like you're constantly having to remind someone to be there for you, remind someone to give you love, remind someone to, you know, just appreciate the little things.
I just want to tap in. So yeah. I would rather say, from my own perspective, thinking that you need to remind yourself, that you need to remind the person to give you love, to be more present, and feeling what it is that your body's telling you. If you feel discomfort, you feel contortions, and you feel sick, and you feel uncomfortable, listen to your body.
Yes.
Listen to what resonates into your bones and soul. Listen to what your body is rejecting and what your brain is tricking you to run towards.
Right.
If they're not in sync with one another, there's your synaptic connection and there's the bridge that's been broken.
Right.
Feel into your body when you ask yourself your questions, and then go towards the opposite direction of what your brain is telling you to do.
Yes, and energy does not lie. I'm a huge stand for that. I say that all the time with my clients in therapy. I say that all the time to anyone who comes to me for relational advice, and I say, trust your intuition, because we've all been there. And intuition, okay, before I say trust your intuition, I just want to say intuition is not like telling our future, right? So we're not using this as a way to predict everything and anything that occurs, because that's when we kind of get it all wrong here with intuition. But in the moment, like Ian said, if you're feeling it, right? If you're feeling sick, if you're feeling like something's off, if you're feeling like this just doesn't make sense, this doesn't align, then that's your body signaling to you something, right? Like the physical is also a message. And we have to become more in tune with our body. And like Ian said, as you're asking yourself these questions, even if you're sitting here and you're like, wait, that sounds familiar, that sounds familiar. Well, if it sounds familiar, then, you maybe want to look a little bit deeper into it. And it will be uncomfortable, and it will hurt, and it will be hard. And this is not something that's easy. If we're constantly feeling like we're in this cycle of, needing that reassurance and then getting it and getting that validation, all that's going to do is solidify that anxiety and allow for that loop to continue and strengthen it. So you're only allowing for an habitual habit to keep happening when we're giving into it. So the more that we have a trigger and then we seek that reassurance and then we get it, well, you just started the loop back over again.
I would also say, again, gentle curiosity. Ask yourself a question as soon as you start to feel a familiar feeling. Mm-hmm. Butterflies, for example. When is the last time that I felt this? How does this serve me? How does this benefit me? The last time that I felt butterflies, did this pay off properly in my favor? Have I felt butterflies in other areas in my life that normally have led to anxiety? The more curiosity that you develop with yourself, the more you're going to know yourself, the more you're going to become familiar with self.
I love that one, because normally butterflies is not a good sign.
Butterflies
That's not.
Is a terrible sign.
It's
butterflies, not. If you have butterflies with somebody, your nervous system is saying help. And
yes.
You're not listening.
Yes.
Butterflies is not a good sign. Do not listen to butterflies. Butterflies are anxiety. You feel anxiety when something is not right for you, and it's the same pit in your stomach that butterflies give you. Run. Do not listen to butterflies. It is your brain. It is your body signaling to you danger, and your brain saying run towards
but he's
it.
So hot.
And oh my God, she's so beautiful. Negative. Run. Go the opposite direction. Do not listen to butterflies ever. If your heart starts to palpitate, anxiety, run opposite direction. Heart palpitations, stomach butterflies, danger. I digress.